The first time Jace Rourke heard the word, sterilization. He was crouched under a humming console in the Zuraxi Grand Council dome with grease up to his elbows and a coil of borrowed wire in his teeth. He wasn't supposed to be there. Humans were allowed in the lower galleries to mop, sweep, and lift heavy crates, but the dome's heart, its scentlit speaking floor, was reserved for the rulers of Vespara, a hot blue world with 3 moons and air that tasted faintly of copper. Jace had been sent as maintenance. 2 guards waved him through after a bored sniff of his papers, because the dome's gravitic vents were stuttering. They wanted more cold down here. The Zuraxi always wanted more cold. "Proceed with Order 7, said a sharp voice above him. Zuraxi's speech was a clean click and hum, but the dome helpfully translated with soft speaker chimes, a courtesy for subspecies. "Record language for the archives. We will not be accused of acting in haste." Jace froze with the coil in his teeth. His left hand hovered near the small device he had taped to the console's underside, a flat black lozenge with a cracked display. To Zuraxi eyes it was junk. To him it was a whisperer, an old human tight-beam transmitter he had smuggled in piece by piece over a year, hiding it inside fans, drains, and ducts. It would never punch through a warship's jamming, but it might talk to the right ear. "Administrator Carey," said the same voice, "you have reservations, speak." Jay slid his goggles down and risked a quick look. The dome's floor was a ring of etched basalt, gleaming with oil-sheen patterns called scent glyphs. The glyphs pulsed faint blue as aromatic mist rose from vents, carrying mood and rank in a language as old as their species. A dozen Zuraxi stood in a slow circle, 4 upper limbs folded tight, scales shining under the dome's cold lights. At the far side stood Carey, small for her species, sash a muted gray instead of the military's bright green. Administrator, civic class, Jace knew her. She had allowed humans into the water markets when the first drought hit over the protests of commanders who said, "Let them thirst." She had also once slipped him a coil of copper with no questions, which was how you told a human you weren't the enemy. Carey's antennae rose and trembled. "Grand Marshal," she said, "the target is a civilian settlement. If our goal is deterrence, there are cleaner paths: seizure, embargo, demonstration fire away from." "Administrator," cut in a new voice, heavy with stale pride, "you have not met the problem named human." Jace recognized Commander Vox Terrian even without looking. You smelled him before you saw him, oils with the hard, false bite of victory. He was all sharp lines and too much polish. Terrian's command patch glittered. His 4th limb held a baton made from the rib of some dead trophy. His mandibles tilted in a smile that didn't belong to friendship. "They do not bend," Terrian continued. "They make allies, they laugh when threatened. The outpost on Delphi New Aegis, they call it, has grown by 22% in a single cycle. They mine without permission. They quote our law back to us as if words were shields. Sterilization is swift. It prevents imitation." "Imitation by whom?" Carey asked, too softly. "Our own city breathes with human machines. Our water nets were stabilized by a human fix. You drink because of them, Commander." Murmurs, a faint sour note drifted through the scent glyphs. Displeasure. Jace stared at the floor and kept his hands busy. He stripped the broken insulation, twisted wire, and slid the Whisperer's antenna through a vent slit. His heart beat in uneven taps. Delphi, New Aegis. He knew people there, a medic who'd patched his shoulder back on Earth, a teacher who'd taught alien kids to read human letters by tracing them in wet sand. The Grand Marshal finally spoke, voice like frost. "Our patience has been taken as weakness for 300 cycles. The Council will not be mocked by farmers and a scavenged radio. Proceed." A pause, then the scent glyphs flashed green, decision sealed. Jace's throat went dry. New Aegis, 3 moons, a long river cut through black glass plains, kids with dust in their hair. He slid the Whisperer flat and nudged it into place. It warmed against his palm, a soft pulse that meant alive. He should have left, go out the way he came. Walk past the guards with the bored sniff, report to the boiler rooms, pretend he hadn't overheard a death sentence. Instead, he lay on his back beneath the Council's console, hands trembling, and thought about the long stain of mistakes trailing behind him like a comet tail. The discharge papers with the words "unfit for combat" written in neat military ink. The bar in Nairobi where he promised he'd never touch a weapon again. The tug contract that brought him to Vespara to fix things that weren't his. He swallowed hard and pressed the Whisperer's single button. Nothing changed. The dome hummed. The Council argued chart angles. Terrian laughed, a scrape of stone on bone. Jace eased the wire to a better angle and pressed again. The Whisperer made a faint tick. His voice would carry along a narrow slice of light to a receiver buried in a market stall deep in the water quarter, bounce into a relay hidden in the keel of a fishing barge, hop to a patient little satellite that humans had long ago accidentally left in high orbit. If the old chain still worked. Jace licked dry lips. "Whisperer open," he breathed. "New Aegis if you can hear me." His throat hitched, words mattered. He forced them out simple and fast. "Zuraxi Council just approved sterilization of your outpost," he whispered. "They launch in 3 rotations. No bluff. Evacuate if you can, hide if you can't. This is Jace Rurk. I'll try to slow them." He lifted his finger. The whisperer was dumb tech. No confirmation chime. No answer. He began to slide out, then stopped. A pair of scaled feet halted a meter from his nose. He smelled salt and thyme. Carrie. Of all the beings who could have found him, she was both the best and worst. "Human," she said softly, not looking down. "Zuraxi were polite like that. If a thing could be named without shame, you named it aloud and spared the hiding. Stand and breathe." He rolled to his knees and eased from under the console. Carrie's eyes dazzled under the lights, a ring of facets that caught every glint. She had no baton, no gleam, only a slim slate pressed to her chest. "You fix what keeps us alive," she said, her antennae dipped. "I remember who you are." "Jace," he said, "just Jace." The guards at the far entrance turned their heads. The dome translated with an airy chime, then fell back to clicks and hums. Tarian swept a hand and scent mist sharpened. Carrie stepped closer, shielding Jace with the line of her body. A brave move. He wanted to tell her not to waste courage on him. "You heard," she said, not a question. He nodded, his mouth tasted like cold metal. "You tried." "You are a grease slicker in a place for generals," she replied. "You should not have risked this." "People I know live on Delphi," he said. "I'm not good at watching bad things and doing nothing anymore." The side of her mouth plates flexed. In a Zuraxi, that was almost a smile. "Do not die today," she said. "If you are taken, they will make a spectacle and call it law." She reached into her sash and pressed something into his palm. It was a little disc of bone carved with Carrie's scent glyph, her personal seal. "This carries my passage through city scent doors. It will fail a military gate, but it opens the civil quarters. Use it. Leave the dome by the underwalk. Do not use the lift." "Carrie, go." He went. The Grand Council dome's underwalk was a mountain of metal and breath. You moved through tight curves of piping, past sleeping compressors that dreamed in slow gurgles. Through grates, Jace saw the city of Vezra spread under the dome's shade. Tiered markets and shading cloths, bright tanks of green water, and the slow, constant stream of bodies. Zuraxi scent bells chimed as citizens passed through doorways, each bell tuned to a different liquid note. He used Carrie's seal and walked fast. The seal pulsed against his palm, warm when a door recognized it, cold when it doubted. Twice he met soldiers. He kept his head down, the human trick of seeming smaller than you were. They ignored him. Humans were tools here, tools were harmless. Sunlight hit him when he reached the river walk. Vespara's star was pale blue and hot, making the air shimmer above the black glass stones laid at the river's edge. The river itself was wide and quiet, full of floating plants like silver coins. Old human pumps pulsed underneath the water, making the city's drinking lines thrum like living veins. Jace headed for the water quarter. He needed the stall with the cracked mirror and a smell of orange peel. He needed to see if the Whisperer had reached home. He didn't make it. An armored transport rolled across the bridge, its sides painted the hard green of military pride. It screeched to a stop in the square. Soldiers poured from the rear hatch, 6, then 10, faces hidden by dark glass, rifles that hummed with a high, nasty note. A loudspeaker cracked. "By order of Commander Vox Tarian," boomed the voice, "the city enters protocol cold. All citizens to shelters, all humans to holding pens, obey and be spared." Every scent bell in the square rang a warning tone, the air filled with sharp citrus fear. Jace's stomach turned to ice. Protocol cold. That was what the Zuraxi did when they wanted to seal a city for a purge. Doors would lock, streets would close, humans would be separated and counted. 2 soldiers walked toward him, easy, casual. One of them raised a scanner. Identification. Jace went for polite. "Yes, sir." He held out Carrie's seal as if it were his own. The scanner chimed and flashed green. The soldiers barely glanced. The seal carried weight after all. "Underwalk clog near the dome," Jace added, pointing back the way he'd come. Turbines are choking. Administrator Carey sent for me to clear it. Fast track. The soldier's visor tilted. He considered the seal, the grease on Jace's sleeves, the plausible urgency. Then he jerked a thumb to a side gate. The scent bell over it glowed orange, civil priority. Fast track, he agreed. Make it breathe. Jace slid through the gate with a breath he didn't know he'd held. He loved this about his kind. Humans told a story with a straight face, and the universe sometimes nodded. He kept moving until the square fell away. The city shifted shape here. The bright market cloths gave way to tight lanes packed with thrift stalls and repair benches. Wind chimes made from old helmets tinkled in the hot breeze. Xuraxi kids hopped a chalk course on 3 legs and shrieked when the pattern broke underfoot, a game about balance. The mirror stall was where he left it, a ropes and tin shack perched over a drainage culvert. The cracked mirror hung at an angle that showed 3 faces at once if you stood in the right place. Jace stepped into the patch of sun on the floor and set his jaw. "Mirror, mirror," he said softly, feeling foolish. That was the trigger phrase they'd picked years ago because it made him laugh and because nobody else would say it with the right mix of sarcasm and hope. "Tell me something good." Behind the mirror, something clicked. A small square of paneling swung inward to reveal an old human radio, fatter than his forearm and shaped like a loaf of bread. Green lights winked alive. A dry little voice came with a hiss. "Vespara Relay Live," it said. "Identify." "Rurk Jace contract function, maintenance. Message pushed, did you get it?" A beat, distant clatter. Somewhere far away, a hand over a mic. "We got it," said the voice. "We were waiting for it, Jace." He gripped the edge of the table. "Waiting." "Yeah," the voice softened. "Listen, you did good. Keep your head down. 3 rotations is the enemy's plan. Ours is shorter. We need your eyes when it starts." "When what starts?" "The part where arrogance turns on itself," said the voice. "The part where they learn the problem with humans." "Which is?" Jace asked. "We don't stop," the voice said. "Even when we're tired, even when we're dumb, even when we're alone." A loud clang shattered the moment. Outside, the city's central gong pounded 3 hard strikes. Shadows shifted. The hot blue light dimmed as if a cloud had crossed the sun. Jace stepped out into the lane and looked up. No clouds. The shadows came from above. Long, knife-shaped. Xuraxi dreadships were sliding over Vezra-like black mountains with glowing veins. They bled cold. The air tasted wrong. Soldiers shouted, doors slammed. Bells rang, someone screamed. The radio crackled. "Jace, you still there? Good, listen carefully. See the spire by the river, the one with the old lightning scars." He saw it. A tall, narrow tower of gray glass built long before humans came here, leaning the slightest bit toward the water as if listening. "Yeah," he said. "Inside that spire," the voice said, "is a maintenance room you know because you know every maintenance room in that city. Floor panel 7 is loose. Under it is the key to everything that comes next. Get there. Now." "Soldiers are sweeping," Jace said, watching a squad fan into the lane. "Then move like water," the voice said. "And Jace, thank Administrator Carey if she helped you. People like her make this possible." "Understood." The radio died. Jace shoved the panel closed and killed the mirror. He tucked Carey's seal into his shirt and let the world narrow to 2 points, the spire across the river and the soldiers between him and it. He could do this. He had done worse. He had built antennas in storms and crawled through fire. He had failed and kept moving. Humans didn't stop. He turned left, then right, then dropped into a drainage channel and ran with the water. The city shook with the rumble of distant engines. He could feel the dreadships mass in his teeth. He hit the river walk and saw the spire up close now, tall and patient, its old scars pale against new stone. He ran for its shadow and almost collided with Administrator Carey. She stepped out of a side door with 2 aides. Her antennae were flat with terror, but her eyes were steady. "Jace," she said, "you did not go far as I asked." "Thank you for the seal," he said quickly. "I won't waste it." She studied his face, then the dreadships, then the tower. "What are you going to do?" "Fix something," he said, the truth as simple as he could make it. Carey thrust a rolled strip of scent cloth into his hands. "This is a city pass with my mark. If a door argues, show it this. I will pretend it was lost. Go." "Why?" he asked. "Why help me again?" She glanced up at the ships that blotted her sky. Her voice was barely a breath. Because once long ago you helped me lift a water pipe with a broken wrist and did not speak of it. My clutch sister lived because of that pipe. Compassion is a debt I pay forward." A whistle shrieked. Soldiers rounded the corner at a run. Carrie pushed him toward the spire door. "Fix it," she said. "Make whatever it is breathe better." He ran into cool stone and climbed a steep spiral. The tower's bones hummed under his hands, old and sure. He counted landings by instinct, 2, 4, 6, until he reached a maintenance hatch marked with a lightning glyph. Floor panel 7 was loose. He pried it up with a squeal of old screws. Under it lay a box the size of his chest, wrapped in grease-stained canvas that smelled like oranges and ocean wind. Human work, human smell, his breath hitched. He pulled the canvas back. Inside, nested in soft foam, lay a folded object like a black flower with too many petals. In its center burned a tiny blue light, steady as a heartbeat. On the lid, in simple human letters, someone had written, "For when they come." Boots thundered on the stairs below. A soldier shouted, "Check the tower." Jace looked at the device. He looked at the doorway. He looked at his hands. Then he pressed the central light. The tower groaned as if something old had just woken up. From the river, a low, rising hum answered. And in the sky above Vezra, as the first Zuraxi dreadship rolled into firing position, every window in the city flashed with the same message in human script. The Zuraxi battle cruiser Inevitable Dominance slid into low orbit with the grace of a predator. Its dark hull cast a wide shadow across the surface of Proxima B, where the human settlement of New Aegis lay spread between a river and the ridge of jagged mountains. From above, it looked fragile. Toy buildings, thin lines of cultivated land. A settlement so small it seemed absurd that it had become the focus of a galactic power's fury. To Commander Vox Terrian, it was already dead. On the bridge, he spread all 4 arms over the command dais, mandibles flexing in amusement. His soldiers bent over glowing tactical arrays, clicking in sharp discipline. "Scan complete," reported the sensor officer. "Defenses negligible. 1 shield generator output below 1% of our standard. Projectile weapons, nothing that can reach orbit." Terrian's mandibles curved into what his species considered a smile. "Excellent. Commence surgical bombardment, power plants first, then communications, then their residences." From the far side of the bridge, Administrator Giller stiffened. His frilled antennae quivered in unease, but his voice remained calm. "Commander, with respect, orbital bombardment of civilian homes is—" "Silence," Terrian snapped. "You are here to observe, not advise." The words clanged in the vaulted command chamber like a struck gong. The soldiers ignored the exchange. Discipline, fear, none dared to show hesitation in Terrian's presence. The order went out. Blue-white lances of plasma streaked down through the thin Proxima clouds, striking the settlement with precision. Jace Rourke, crouched in a maintenance corridor of Vezra's lightning-scarred spire, felt the vibration even through the Zuraxi city's thick stone. On the screen of the black-pedaled device before him, he saw the flashes light up in real time, human homes disintegrating in blossoms of fire. The Zuraxi bridge erupted in calm, mechanical triumph. Power destroyed. Communications array offline. Shield collapsed. Terrian leaned back in satisfaction. Proceed. Secondary targets, transport hubs, distribution centers, wipe them clean. On Proxima's surface, New Aegis burned. Fields smoldered. Thin columns of smoke curled skyward where greenhouses once stood. Civilians ran, small dots on the tactical display, their panic meaningless against the fire raining down. Administrator Giller's stomach tightened. He leaned toward Terrian, voice urgent. "The Supreme Directive states once a settlement's defenses are down." Terrian didn't even look at him. Directive applies to civilized species, not vermin pretending at law. More plasma bolts screamed through the sky. The first screams from the ground came through the troop commander's feed. Helmet cameras flickered to life as Zuraxi shock troops descended in black drop ships, their armor gleaming, weapons humming. They moved with clinical efficiency through the ruins, smoke curling around their armored limbs. "Minimal resistance," the ground commander reported. "Civilian structures collapsing, proceeding to sweep." Terrian's mandibles clicked, as expected. But Lieutenant Moradin's voice wavered as she peered at her console. "Sir, Unusual energy readings underground, large clusters, too regular to be random. Tarion waved a dismissive claw. Backup generators, or humans hiding in their tunnels, nothing worth concern. On the surface, the ground feed showed Alpha Squad preparing to breach one of those tunnels. A reinforced steel door buried into the hillside. Charges were placed. The countdown ticked. Breach in 3, 2, 1. The feed erupted in a flash of fire. Dust and rock clouded the lens. The door sagged inward, troops surged forward. And then the screen went black. 4 helmet feeds died at once. "Reestablish link," Tarion barked. A 5th camera caught a blur, a shape moving too fast, too fluid, before cutting out in static. "What was that?" the commander demanded. The ground officer's voice trembled. "Unknown. We've lost contact with 4 units. Energy surge in beta tunnels. Wait." The command deck's tactical display flared red. One of the Zuraxi dropships exploded in a violent flash, scattering debris across the surface. "Impossible," Tarion roared. His command baton slammed against the dais. "They have nothing capable of." "But they did." Jace, still hunched in the tower, watched the black-petaled device bloom open like a mechanical flower. Blue light rippled across its veins, poolsing into the ground, down into the rivers, outward into the mountains. He didn't understand the engineering. He'd only ever been a mechanic, a patcher of broken things. But he recognized one truth. This had been waiting. On the surface, Zuraxi soldiers opened fire into the tunnels, their rifles slicing air with white-hot beams. Shadows darted between rocks, too fast to lock on. Counterfire lanced out, beams of energy that cut through Zuraxi armor like it was soft cloth. 60% of ground forces unresponsive, the comms officer stammered. "That's interference," Tarion shouted, though his voice betrayed panic. "Recalibrate, their weapons are toys." Another explosion. A second dropship spiraled into the forest below. "Sir," Lieutenant Moradin said, her voice tight but steady, "those weapons are not toys. Analysis matches gravitic compression signatures." Tarion froze, his mandibles twitched. "That's restricted to Tier 2 civilizations. They're Tier 5. "Not anymore," Moradin whispered. Administrator Giller spoke, his voice almost calm in the chaos. "Perhaps, Commander, they were never what you believed." The comm officer shrieked. "Multiple launches detected, small objects rising fast, trajectory locked on us. Missiles, dozens of them, ascending in perfect arcs." "Raise shields," Tarion bellowed. "Evasive maneuvers." Too late. The first missile struck inevitable dominance broadside, ripping through an engine housing. The deck shuddered violently, lights flickering. Crew stumbled, some lifted from the floor as gravity faltered. "Direct hit," the engineer cried. "Shields at 60%, no 40. The second missile hit, then a third. Panels burst into flame. Alarms wailed. Through the main screen, Tarion watched in horror as New Aegis, tiny, pitiful New Aegis, vomited fire skyward, missiles and beams alike, weapons no intelligence report had ever suggested. The bridge fell silent except for the groan of the wounded ship. And then in that silence, a voice crackled across the speakers. Calm, measured, human. "Attention, Zuraxi vessel. This is Mayor Daria Kincaid of New Aegis. Your unprovoked attack on civilians is a war crime under Galactic Charter, Section 12, Paragraph 7. We offer you one chance to retreat, withdraw your troops, leave our orbit, or face destruction." Every head on the bridge turned. Administrator Giller's antennae rose. Tarion's mandibles twitched with rage. "How dare they?" he hissed. "How dare they?" Mayor Kincaid's voice did not waver. "We were hoping you would say that." The transmission cut. "Sir," shouted the sensor officer. "Massive energy buildup beneath the surface, south sector, power levels off scale. I don't understand." Jace watched from his tower as the river split open with light. A beam surged upward, white-hot and impossibly bright, spearing through the clouds. The inevitable dominance was caught in its path. The impact hurled Jace against the tower wall. Even through stone and distance, the sound was deafening. On the bridge, chaos reigned. Sparks rained from ceilings. Officers scrambled, shouting numbers that dropped too fast. "Reactor containment breached. Shields collapsing. Weapons offline." And in the center of the storm, Tarian stood frozen, mandibles wide, his arrogance cracked open at last. The unthinkable had just begun. Part 3, The Surprise, Humans Fight Back. The command deck of the asterisk Inevitable Dominance was drowning in red light. Alarms shrieked, damage reports screamed across the comms, and crews scrambled in terrified chaos. What had begun as a routine, cleansing operation had turned into a nightmare no Xuraxi had ever imagined. Commander Vox Tarian clung to the command dais, mandibles clenched in disbelief. His voice, once smooth with arrogance, now cracked. Stabilize shields, fire again, do something. But no one moved with the crisp obedience he demanded. Fear had eaten discipline. The Xuraxi were predators by culture, never prey. And now they realized they had walked into the jaws of something far hungrier than themselves. Lieutenant Moradin's voice rose above the panic. Sir, reactor field is collapsing if we don't withdraw to high orbit. We will not retreat before vermin, Tarian roared. Redirect secondary batteries, target that energy source, obliterate it. Administrator Giller, forgotten at the observation rail, whispered in horror. You don't understand, they baited you. No one listened. Outside, the white-hot beam that had torn through their reactor finally dimmed, leaving a column of molten air above New Aegis. But the silence was worse than the sound. Every officer on the bridge could feel it. The humans weren't finished. The sensor officer stiffened. Multiple contacts, new launches, hundreds of small craft rising from the settlement. They're ours, sir. The bridge view magnified. Dozens of Xuraxi dropships clawed into the sky, but they weren't Xuraxi anymore. Their hulls were welded with new armor plating, glowing with crude but effective human modifications. Gun ports bristled with unfamiliar weapons bolted onto Xuraxi frames. They've stolen our ships, Tarian bellowed. Bring them down. The tactical officer tried. The first volley from the cruiser's flak batteries lit the sky with fire, but the stolen drop ships scattered, darting with shocking agility. Their movements weren't Xuraxi standard formations. They fought like swarm insects, each ship darting in erratic bursts, circling the cruiser in dizzying spirals. Targets too fast, the gunner cried. They're unpredictable. The humans didn't try to face the cruiser head-on. Instead, they attacked like saboteurs. Modified cannons spat bursts of gravitic compression shells, compact, unstable masses that tore through plating. Explosions peppered the asterisk Inevitable Dominance asterisk, hammering engines and shield nodes. Direct hit to Deck 7. Outer hull breached. Shields failing. The cruiser groaned under the onslaught. Tarian's claws dug into the dais. Impossible, they were primitives, farmers, they. Administrator Giller cut him off, voice sharp and bitter. You underestimated them. That is the problem with humans. They refuse the roles you assign them. Tarian's mandibles snapped in rage, but the truth of it echoed across the broken deck. And then the screens flickered. Static gave way to a human face. The woman's head was bare of hair, skin sun-darkened by Proxima's twin suns. She wore no armor, only a simple jacket patched with tools, yet her eyes were steel, steady as mountains. Attention, Xuraxi vessel, she said calmly. This is Mayor Daria Kincaid of New Aegis. You've slaughtered our families, destroyed our homes, and called it law. We warned you under your charter. You ignored us. Now we answer. Her voice hardened, echoing in the silence. You think yourselves conquerors, but we have learned something from every world we touched, every species we spoke to, every ally you silenced. You call us primitive. Her gaze burned through the static. Watch us prove you wrong. The screen cut. And then, without warning, one of the modified dropships slammed into the cruiser's starboard hangar bay. A brilliant flare of light swallowed the screen. Impact breach in Hangar 3, the officer cried. They're boarding us. The words chilled the command deck. Boarding a Xuraxi battle cruiser was suicide. No one had ever dared, yet feeds now showed human soldiers in patched armor pouring into corridors through fire and smoke. Their weapons spat light unlike anything Xuraxi engineers recognized. Seal bulkheads, Tarian screamed. Deploy shock troops. But already, bridge alarms flashed with new horrors. Enemy presence detected on Deck 6. Engineering bay compromised. Life support under assault. Administrator Giller gripped the rail, his voice low but clear. They're not just defending, they're taking your ship. On the surface, Jace Rourke sprinted down the tower's spiral, the hum of the black-pedaled device still echoing in his bones. The city outside had erupted into chaos. Zuraxi soldiers shouted as civilians scattered, doors slammed, alarms howled. He ran toward the river, Carrie's scent pass clenched in his fist. He had no weapon, no armor, just sweat, breath, and stubbornness. The radio relay in the spire buzzed in his ear, Mayor Kincaid's voice breaking through. Jace, if you're alive, listen. The boarders need eyes inside Vezra. They won't expect a human there. Get to the eastern gate. Find our people. Guide them. I don't even know the plan, Jace gasped, dodging down an alley. That is the plan, she said. We move where they don't expect. That's how we survive. The line cut. A squad of Zuraxi shock troopers thundered into the lane ahead of him, weapons humming. Jace dove into a drainage culvert, breath rasping in his throat, heart slamming. He splashed through ankle-deep water until the culvert opened into a lower chamber. And froze. There, hidden beneath the city, was another chamber filled with humans. Dozens of them, mechanics, medics, settlers, all armed with scavenged Zuraxi rifles and crates of gear. At their center, an old man in patched armor turned toward him. His beard was gray, but his eyes burned. You're Rourke, he said, the mechanic who planted the Whisperer. Jace swallowed, still panting. Yeah, that's me. Good, the old man said, pressing a weapon into his hands. Heavy, human-made, solid. Then you're one of us now. Time to remind them what humans do when someone tries to erase us. Above, the inevitable dominance shuddered again. Another explosion rocked its decks. Tarion stared into the maelstrom, his arrogance peeling away with every tremor. His ship, his pride, his empire, slipping through his claws. And in that terrible moment, every Zuraxi on the bridge realized the unthinkable. They were losing. The inevitable dominance bled fire into orbit, its vast hull cracked and screaming with alarms. Inside, human boarders spread like wildfire through its decks, small in number, but quick, cunning, and utterly fearless. Commander Vox Tarion stood rigid at the command dais, barking orders into chaos. Seal bulkheads, vent those sectors, drown them in vacuum. But the orders were too late. Deck after deck reported compromised until the words lost meaning. Administrator Giller stood at the observation rail, watching the nightmare unfold. His frilled antennae quivered with something that might have been awe or dread. The words he whispered, though soft, cut sharper than any weapon. They're not just resisting, they're teaching us a lesson. Tarion's mandibles snapped. Silence, Administrator! Yet even he knew. The Zuraxi had come to exterminate. Instead, they were being dismantled. Beneath the city, Jace Rourke's lungs burned as he ducked into the hidden chamber beneath Vezra. Dozens of humans filled the cavern, all bristling with salvaged Zuraxi rifles, armored vests patched with scavenged plating, and tools wired into strange weapons. The old man in patched armor, the one with the burning eyes, extended a hand. Name, Colonel Abram Cade. Used to run Earth's orbital defense. Now I run this. Jace gripped his hand. A resistance. Cade's mouth twisted in a grin. A coalition, bigger than you think. The cavern was alive with activity. Engineers hunched over crates of Zuraxi components, welding strange hybrids of human and alien tech. A medic triaged a fighter whose arm was seared black. Kids, actual kids, no older than 15, hauled ammo crates like dockhands. At the chamber's far wall, a holographic map flickered, not just of Vezra, but of the entire sector. Red Zuraxi control points pulsed across dozens of systems, but blue sparks now flared beside them. Human settlements, long thought primitive, suddenly marked as fortified. Jace's throat tightened. There are more of us. Always were, Cade said. We just learned how to hide. Another voice spoke behind him. Administrator Carrie stepped from the shadows, her scent glyph sash dimmed to plain gray. Soldiers stared but didn't raise weapons. She'd clearly been here before. You, Jace asked, stunned. Carrie's compound eyes reflected the dim blue light. Did you think compassion dies in every Zuraxi? Some of us remember what it means to share water. Cade's grin widened. She's the one who kept us supplied with intel. Without Carrie, half these settlements would have been ash years ago. Jace blinked at her. The quiet administrator, mocked in the council, had been the knife in the Empire's ribs all along. The plan, Cade gestured at the holomap. Tarian's ship won't be the last. The Zuraxi will send fleets, bigger ones, but we don't need to win space battles the old way. We're not here to match them ship for ship. He stabbed a finger at the glowing blue sparks. We bleed them everywhere at once. Jace frowned. How? Cade pointed toward the black-pedaled device Jace had activated in the spire. A smaller version sat on a table here, disassembled like a puzzle. Humans worked around it, tightening bolts, rerouting wires. That, Cade said. We call it a gravnet. It's not ours, at least not originally. Found fragments in an alien ruin. Took us decades to understand it. The Zuraxi never looked twice. They thought we were digging rocks. Jace's stomach twisted. And you hit it on purpose. Of course we did, Cade said. You think we'd show our hand before we were ready? Every time they called us primitive, they gave us more time. Every insult was a gift. Carrie's antennae drooped. And now you reveal it because you know they will never stop. Cade nodded. Exactly. On the cruiser, Lieutenant Moradin struggled to hold the bridge together. She dragged wounded officers to med bays, rerouted power, barked at soldiers frozen with fear. Where Tarian bellowed rage, she acted. Commander, she snapped, the humans have seized Hangar 3 if they secure engineering. They will not, Tarian roared, but his voice cracked under the weight of failing systems. Deploy all shock troops there. But the sensor officer's voice was broken. We can't. Half of engineering is dark. We've lost the primary reactor. Administrator Giller spoke again, quiet but cutting. Perhaps, Commander, you should order retreat. Tarian turned, mandibles trembling. For the first time, Giller saw it, fear. Retreat, Tarian hissed. We are the Zuraxi Imperium. We do not retreat. Another explosion rocked the deck, sending consoles tumbling. Sparks rained from the ceiling. And over the intercom came the unthinkable, a human voice, calm. Engineering secured, reactor in our hands, inevitable dominance is ours. The bridge froze, Tarian's claws scraped the dais. Giller felt a strange chill. The arrogance was dead, now only truth remained. The spark. Back beneath Vezra, the resistance surged with new life. A young scout rushed in, gasping. They did it, they took the cruiser. Cheers erupted. Engineers slammed tools against tables, fighters whooped. Even children smiled through ash-streaked faces. But Cade only nodded grimly. One ship isn't victory, it's a spark. The Empire will come harder, stronger. That's when we show them. He turned to Jace. You're a mechanic, you know systems. I need people who can adapt on the fly. We're moving fast now, you in. Jace swallowed. He thought of Mayor Kincaid's calm defiance, of Carrie risking her rank, of families huddled in tunnels waiting for a future. Yeah, he said, I'm in. Carrie studied him. Understand what this means. Once you join them, there is no going back. You will never be invisible again. Jace exhaled. Then it's about time. The Zuraxi Grand Military Council had not summoned a full emergency session in nearly 2 centuries. The last time had been during the Hivemind invasion, when survival itself balanced on a knife's edge. But now the council chamber blazed with light, its vaulted dome alive with the scent glyphs of anger, fear, and disbelief. Administrator Fixus Giller stood at the edge of the floor, summoned not as participant but as witness. He had hoped his survival aboard the inevitable dominance might fade into obscurity. Instead, it marked him. He had seen the humans fight. He had seen them win, and now, against every instinct, he was asked to recount it. Grand Marshal Calera's voice was as cold as stone. Let us hear it again, Administrator. Slowly. You are telling us a pre-interstellar human settlement destroyed a Zuraxi battle cruiser, captured its technology, and slaughtered our ground troops. Giller's throat was dry. The Council's compound eyes pinned him like spears. That is correct, he said. They possessed weapons far beyond our estimates. They employed strategies we had never considered. General Mock slammed all 6 of his limbs onto the table, the sound reverberating like thunder. Lies, exaggeration. They are vermin. Clever vermin, perhaps, but vermin nonetheless. No human could seize a Dreadnought-class reactor. Lieutenant Moradin, the only other survivor from the inevitable dominance, stepped forward. Her voice was clipped precise. I was there, General. They didn't seize it. They understood it. Within minutes, they adapted our systems to their needs. I saw them reroute gravitic flows with tools barely worthy of maintenance crews. They learn faster than we thought possible. Mock's mandibles clicked with contempt. You shame your uniform with excuses. But the chamber had shifted. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. No one dared name it aloud, but fear had entered their ranks. Civilians had been invited to this council as well, another rarity. Overseer Nexel, draped in white civic robes, leaned forward with a hiss of disdain. You blame the administrator? You blame the lieutenant? No, this failure rests with the military. For cycles you have mocked the warnings of the diplomatic corps. You dismissed reports of human ingenuity. Now your arrogance has bled us. The chamber erupted in clicks and hisses, the scent of fury sharp in the air. Calera pounded a claw against the table, silencing them. Enough. Assigning blame is worthless. The question is simple. What now? The answer came from Strategic Director Pelax, whose compound eyes glittered with unease. A hollow map of the sector blossomed above the table. Red markers denoted Zuraxi outposts, but now scattered blue sparks pulsed among them. Human settlements, human allies, human activity where none should have been. In just 3 cycles, Pelax said grimly, the humans have captured 3 of our installations and at least 1 dreadnought. Reports indicate they are not isolated. This is organized, coordinated. They have allies. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Carrie's warnings, Jiller thought bitterly. Her quiet protests in the dome laughed away as weakness. She had been right all along. New Aegis Proxima B. In the ruins of the settlement, Colonel Abram Cade stood among his people. Fires still smoldered where Zuraxi plasma had struck, but around them the air was alive with the hammer of rebuilding. Humans scavenged the wreckage of Zuraxi machines, prying out cores and plating. Children carried water in dented helmets. Medics stitched wounds by the glow of jury-rigged lamps. Jace Rourke staggered under the weight of a stripped engine coil, sweat dripping into his eyes. He dropped it onto a pile and bent double, wheezing. "You'll break me before the Zuraxi do," he muttered. Cade barked a laugh. "Good, if you're still complaining, you're not dead yet." Mayor Kincaid approached, her calm presence cutting through the chaos. "We've received confirmation," she said. "The inevitable dominance is secured. Our engineers are already pulling at schematics." Jace wiped grime from his forehead. "You're telling me we're flying that thing?" "Not flying," Kincaid corrected. "Using," her eyes gleamed. "It's not just a weapon, it's a symbol. Every oppressed species that hears we captured it will rise." Cade nodded grimly. "And they'll rise fast. The Zuraxi won't wait. They'll throw fleets at us." Kincaid looked to Jace. "Which means we need every mechanic, every engineer, every hand ready. You up for that, Rourke?" Jace almost laughed. A year ago, he was fixing broken fans for Zuraxi kitchens. Now he was standing in the ruins of a human city, staring at a stolen battle cruiser. "Yeah," he said. "Guess I don't get to quit now." General Mock thundered again. "Deploy the fleets, sterilize every human colony, reduce them to ash before this infection spreads." But Overseer Nexel snapped back. "And waste how many ships? You forget, they captured our dreadnought. Every fleet you send may become their fleet." The chamber buzzed with uneasy murmurs. Grand Marshal Calera finally raised one claw, silencing the room. "We cannot underestimate them again. If they have hidden this much, what else lies waiting?" Administrator Jiller stepped forward, surprising himself with the boldness in his voice. "They baited you at New Aegis. They wanted you to strike, and you did exactly what they needed, showed your arrogance to the galaxy." Dozens of compound eyes turned on him. For the first time in his career, Jiller didn't flinch. "You call them primitive," he said, "but their true weapon is not their machines. It is their audacity. They defy the roles you assign. They refuse to bow. That is why they inspire rebellion. That is why they are dangerous." For a moment, the council chamber was utterly silent. Then Pelax broke it with a whisper. "We may be witnessing the birth of a coalition we cannot crush." In orbit over another Zuraxi world, a fleet of transports drifted under Zuraxi control. Suddenly, their lights flickered, and human-coded signals erupted across their hulls. One by one, their drives turned, breaking formation. A nearby Zuraxi garrison sent frantic transmissions. "They've taken our ships, they've..." Static swallowed the message. The humans had struck again, and the Zuraxi Empire was beginning to unravel. The Zuraxi homeworld of Zorath had never known fear. Its skies had always been clear of foreign banners, its oceans unbroken by enemy fleets. The Imperium had stretched outward for 1,800 cycles, conquering, absorbing, enslaving. To the Zuraxi, their capital was untouchable, eternal. Until now, Administrator Fixus Giller stood once again in the Grand Council chamber. The vaulted ceiling seemed lower this time, as if the galaxy itself pressed down on them. The hollow map above the central table glowed red and blue, red for the Imperium's proud holdings, blue for the insurgent humans and their allies. And the blue was spreading. Strategic Director Pelax's voice was brittle. In 17 cycles, human-led forces have seized or neutralized 27 of our installations and liberated 14 subjugated species. They do not waste resources on sieges. They bypass strongholds, strike our supply lines, and dismantle our infrastructure. Blue sparks pulsed across the map, converging toward the Zuraxi capital system like hunters closing in. General Mock slammed a claw into the table. Savages, thieves, they use our ships, our codes, crush them. Your fleets retreat before them, Overseer Nexel snapped. Entire dreadnoughts captured intact. Your arrogance has armed them better than any rebellion in our history. Calera, the Grand Marshal, stared at the map in silence. Her compound eyes glimmered with something Giller had never thought he'd see, doubt. At their current rate of advance, she said, the humans will reach Zorath in 22 cycles. The chamber erupted in panic. Civilians demanded negotiations. Generals demanded extermination fleets. Giller raised his voice, not knowing why courage found him now. You don't understand. They don't want glory. They want control. Every time you fight them where you expect them, they strike where you don't. You cannot defeat an enemy who refuses to play by your rules. His words lingered in the chamber, heavy as stone. In deep space, far from the capital, the Zuraxi dreadnought Relentless drifted. Once it had been the pride of the Imperium, bristling with weapons capable of cracking continents. Now its hull bore a crude, defiant scrawl in human letters, Democracy. Inside, corridors once patrolled by Zuraxi soldiers now rang with human voices. Mechanics welded strange hybrids of tech, bolting human interfaces onto Zuraxi consoles. Alien allies, Vrex engineers with crystalline hands, quarry healers with silk-like limbs, worked beside them. Jace Rurk stood in a chamber that had once been the Zuraxi officer's mess. Now it was a workshop alive with sparks. He leaned over a jury-rigged console, fingers stained with grease. Across from him, Colonel Cade watched with arms folded. "You sure you can coax their reactor to play nice with our systems?" Cade asked. Jace grinned tiredly. "I've been fixing broken things my whole life. Doesn't matter if it's a water pump or a planet-killer engine. Machines want to work if you treat 'em right." Carrie stepped into the room, her gray administrator's sash replaced with a stripped utilitarian harness. She looked out of place among humans, yet she held herself with quiet pride. "The irony is almost poetic," she said softly. "Your people call it democracy. Ours never understood the word." Cade's mouth hardened. "They're about to." News spread like fire. Across the galaxy, species who had suffered under Zuraxi domination watched human victories with widening eyes. The Vrex rebelled openly, their crystalline cities rising against garrisons. The pentapods abandoned their mines and flooded Zuraxi patrols with sheer numbers. Everywhere rebellion bloomed, and everywhere human signals whispered the same message: "Stand with us, you are not alone." In Vezra's underground, Mayor Kincaid spoke before a mixed gathering of humans and aliens. Her voice was steady, her tone neither boastful nor fearful. "The Zuraxi told us we were primitive. They told us we would never matter, but look at us now. We do not just fight back. We change the rules. We do not conquer. We build. We do not enslave. We free. If they want to call us dangerous, let them. We will be dangerous to tyrants." The room erupted in cheers. For the first time in living memory, hope outweighed fear. Admiral Yexar stood aboard the subjugator, watching her fleet arrayed before the capital. 3 dreadnoughts, 40 support vessels. The most powerful armada the Imperium had ever assembled in one place. And yet her limbs trembled. "Admiral," her aide said nervously, "reports confirm the human coalition has entered the sector. Estimated arrival in 6 rotations." Yexar's mandibles clicked in unease. "Then we end this here. Let the galaxy see that the Imperium still has teeth." But she remembered the footage. The relentless, boarded and captured. Zuraxi soldiers dragged away by humans who should never have been capable of such feats, and painted across the dreadnought's hull that single human word. Her fear sharpened into rage. Prepare all batteries, they will break against us like waves against stone. But when the human coalition arrived, they did not attack the fleet head-on. Instead, their ships flickered into being behind the Zuraxi lines, as if space itself had betrayed the Imperium. Impossible, Yexar shouted. They bypassed our perimeter, how? Lieutenant Moradin, watching from the capital below, whispered the truth Jiller had already suspected. They've mastered faster-than-light transit, something even we have never achieved. The Zuraxi fleet panicked, torn between turning to meet the threat and guarding the capital. The coalition pressed the advantage, captured Zuraxi dreadnoughts fighting alongside human-built craft, alien allies striking with vengeance long denied. Jace Rurk, standing at a jury-rigged console aboard the Democracy, braced as the ship shuddered with its first salvo. His voice was steady despite his fear. Let's show them what a mechanic can do with stolen toys. The coalition fleet surged forward. Zuraxi defenses collapsed like brittle glass. Zorath's skis had always been the pride of the Zuraxi Imperium, vast and unbroken, filled only with their own banners and fleets. Now those skis burned. Human ships pierced the upper atmosphere, flanked by vessels bearing the markings of one subjugated species. The fleet moved with ruthless precision, bypassing static defenses and striking only where it mattered. Communication hubs, power grids, command spires. In the Grand Council chamber, chaos reigned. Civilian and military leaders shouted over one another, sent glyphs of fear and rage thick in the air. Supreme Executive Zax, ancient and frail, raised all 6 limbs. His voice cut through the storm. We have 22 cycles, you told us. They arrived in 17. They bypassed our fleets, neutralized our defenses, and now they hold orbit. The Imperium stands on the edge. Grand Marshal Kalera's mandibles twitched. We must fight to the last, better to fall with honor. Honor, snapped Overseer Nexel. Or pride, you would see our people turn to ash to preserve your arrogance. Administrator Jiller stepped forward. We have one choice left. Surrender, negotiate terms, live to rebuild. The humans have offered mercy. General Mock hissed, mercy from vermin. Lieutenant Moradin's voice was steady. Vermin who now control your skis. The chamber fell silent. The truth hung heavy. The humans had come and they were winning. The capital under sea. On the surface, Zuraxi citizens cowered in their homes as human ground forces advanced. But this was no reckless assault. The coalition moved with surgical precision, disabling military installations, securing infrastructure, and avoiding civilian casualties wherever possible. From a captured command spire, Mayor Daria Kincaid broadcast across the planet. People of Zorath, she said, we are not here to destroy you. We are here to end an empire built on subjugation. Lay down your arms, help us build a new order, one where no species lives in fear. Her voice echoed through shattered streets and hidden bunkers. Some Zuraxi soldiers hesitated, others threw down their weapons. The spire. In a repurposed council building, human engineers worked alongside alien allies. Jace Rurk crouched beside a damaged power relay, coaxing life back into the city's failing grid. Sweat streaked his face, but his hands were steady. Carrie approached, her gray administrator's harness stained with ash. You rebuild even as the city falls, she said. Jace grinned tiredly. Someone has to keep the lights on. She knelt beside him. My people will not forget this. You came as conquerors, but you choose to heal. Jace looked up, meeting her compound eyes. We came as survivors, but we're staying as builders. The surrender. In the council chamber, Zax's voice trembled. We have received the terms, total demilitarization, dismantling of the caste hierarchy, freedom for all subjugated species, coalition oversight of our government. Mock roared, outrageous, we would be slaves. No, Jiller said softly, we would be free for the first time in centuries. Kalera's shoulders slumped. We have no fleet left, no army, no choice. Zax raised his limbs in surrender. Then let us sign, and hope they are as merciful as they claim. A new dawn. One cycle later, under a pale sunrise, the coalition flag was raised above the capital, not as a symbol of domination, but as a promise. Kincaid stood beside Jace and Carrie, addressing a crowd of humans, Zuraxi, and countless others. We are not here to replace one empire with another. We are here to build something better, together. The crowd erupted in cautious cheers. Jace glanced at Carrie. Think it'll work? She tilted her head. Perhaps, if we remember what brought us here. Jace smiled. The problem with humans is they never stop, she finished. Epilogue 20 cycles later. In a classroom overlooking the rebuilt capital, Zuraxi and human children studied side by side. Outside, ships from a dozen worlds docked peacefully. In a quiet corner, a monument stood, a simple plaque bearing a single word in a dozen languages. Freedom. Beneath it, the names of those who had fallen and those who had risen. Because the problem with humans was never that they fought. It was that they believed things could change. And now, so did the galaxy.